A long time ago there was an old king. This old king had 3 sons who were not just handsome, but very kind as well. They were very noble and always went out of their way to do the right thing. However, as time went on, the old king's advisors began to tell the old king lies. The advisors told the old king that his 3 sons were getting impatient for the throne and that they were plotting to take over control from the old king. At first, the old king did not believe these lies, but as time went on, his mind began to believe what his corrupt advisors were telling him. The old king was also aware that he was indeed getting older, and he might not be able to be king for much longer. The old king came up with a plan in order to keep his sons busy and hopefully prevent them from plotting to take over the throne, even though in reality it was not true. The old king gathered his sons and told them that he was getting old and that he was preparing to retire from the throne. He then told his sons that in his retirement he would very much like a loyal dog who was both intelligent, beautiful, and trustworthy. The king then told his sons that whoever brought back the best dog that matched this description would become king. With that, the king sent his 3 sons into the world and searched for the best dog. The old king was sure that it would take them a long time to find the right dog, and in all that time, the old king would get an extra year on the throne. The king also told them that they had a year to search for the perfect dog before returning home. The sons left and went to a tavern. They all agreed that they would meet together in a year to present their dogs all at the same time. They thought that this would be fair to each other. All 3 brothers took different roads. The youngest made his way throughout the country. Every time the young prince found a dog he thought was great, he would purchase it. When he would find one even better, he would give the old dog to one of his servants as a gift. After he had given all his servants dogs, the young prince stopped buying dogs. He knew that the last dog he would get would have to be the best. The young prince was traveling from town to town when he found his way into a forest. He knew that he had to pass through the forest in order to get to the next town. So he made his way through. As he followed the path, darkness fell, and to make matters even worse, a large storm arrived overhead. The young prince tried to stay on the path and make it to the next town, but it wasn't long before the young prince lost his path and began to wander deeper and deeper into the forest. As the young prince kept looking for the path, he became more and more lost. He eventually came to a clearing. To his surprise, in this clearing there was a castle. It was beautiful and built with the best craftsmanship. As he walked through the gardens to the castle entrance, he noticed the sculptures of various fairies. At the entrance, he pulled a chain on the door and he heard a bell ring. Instantly, the door opened, and to his surprise, he saw several floating torches, as if being held by invisible people, coming toward him. Then he felt the invisible hands gently pushing him in. At first, he was afraid of entering the castle with invisible people. Then he started to hear the invisible people begin to chant. In the chant, they told him there was no danger to fear, that they would take good care of him, and that he would be the one to break the spell that fell on the beautiful lady. After hearing this, the young prince began to relax. He didn't know what the words could mean. Still, the gentle invisible hands kept pushing him deeper into the castle. The hands took him to a bedroom. Once inside, the young prince noticed that there was already fresh clothes set out for him and a warm bath. The prince removed his wet clothes, cleaned himself, then put on the new clothes that were waiting for him. The young prince noticed that the bed was made up for 2 people, and he wondered who else used this room. As soon as he saw this, he saw several small figures that barely came up to his knee. They were wearing cloaks, and he could not see what form they took. They approached him and one of the figures removed her cloak. It turned out to be a beautiful white cat. Then the white cat began to speak. She told the young prince that he was welcome here, and that he would be taken care of during his stay. The young prince, a little surprised at the talking cat, quickly recovered from his shock, and told the white cat that he was very happy to have found this place, and that she was very kind already to have treated him so well. The white cat then told the young prince that he had made it just in time for supper, and that he was to join her in the dining room to eat. There they would be able to continue this conversation. The young prince felt the invisible hands guiding him until he found himself in the dining room, where he was greeted by the white cat. They ate together. The cat ate rats and mice, and the young prince ate a delicious prepared food for a human. Once they were finished, the prince noticed a portrait hanging on the other side of the room. He turned to the white cat and asked permission to go view it. The white cat sighed and told him that he was free to do so. The young prince noticed that the white cat was saddened by this. So he did not bring up the topic of the painting. He noticed that the painting looked exactly like him. When the young prince returned to talk to the white cat, they talked about a great many things. The young prince noticed that the white cat was very intelligent and had a lot of views on a lot of topics. After a while, the white cat told the prince that it was time for bed, and she thanked him for all this conversation. The young prince felt the invisible hands guiding him back to his room. There he took a bath and went to bed. He did not sleep well. He spent the night thinking about this white cat and how much he enjoyed the conversations with her. It wasn't long before he was woken up, and the white cat came into his room. She asked him if he would like to join in their entertainment. The young prince agreed, and was taken down to the gardens. There was a wooden horse, which he climbed up onto. There was about 500 other cats, and some of them riding monkeys. And then the white cat told them to release their prey. Thousands of rats and mice were released into the gardens. The cats waited for the order of the white cat to pursue their prey. When she gave it, all the cats and the cats riding monkeys began to chase the rats and the mice. The young prince followed on his wooden horse and had a great deal of fun. Not even the birds were safe from the cats riding monkeys because they could easily climb the trees. After a while, the hunt was over, and the young prince and the white cat came back to the castle. There they ate lunch, and the young prince told the white cat of the mission of his father, the old king. The young prince told the white cat that he was expected to find the perfect dog for his father, and that if he did, he would become the next king. The white cat listened and told the young prince that he had nothing to fear, that she would help him. After a year of living with the white cat reminded the young prince that it was time for him to go home in order to give the dog to the old king. The young prince had completely forgot about his mission because he enjoyed staying with the white cat in her castle this whole time. The white cat then told the young prince that she would give him an acorn, and that he was to open the acorn when he was back in his father's land. The young prince thanked the white cat and was guided by the invisible hands and taken to the wooden horse. With the acorn in his pocket, the young prince made it back home before any of the other brothers. The young prince cracked open the acorn, and out came a small mutt of a dog. This didn't bother the young prince because he saw the beauty in the dog and saw how loyal it was. Once the other brothers met up with the young prince, They showed each other the dogs that they had received. The other brothers brought pure breeds and well-groomed dogs. When the other brothers saw the young prince's dog, they tried not to laugh. When the young prince was away, they said at least they didn't have to worry about his dog being picked. They believed that there was no way that the old king would take that dog. The three brothers went to the king, and the two older brothers presented their dogs. The old king looked at their dogs and declared that he liked their dogs so much, but he couldn't decide which one he liked better, because they were both equally good. Then the young prince took out his dog, who was filled with dirt and grime from playing all day. The second the old king saw this dog, he was instantly in love with it. However, though it had been an extra year for the king to have on the throne, he still did not want to retire. So the old king told the brothers that they had all succeeded so well that he could not decide which dog was the better one. The old king then told the three brothers that they must take another year and go in search of a cambric, which is a closely woven white linen that was so fine that it could be put through the eye of a small needle. The three brothers knew that this would be very hard and would take them a great deal of effort. The two older brothers split up and took different paths on the road. Then the young prince mounted his wooden horse and traveled very quickly to the castle of the white cat. The second he arrived, the invisible hands helped him off the horse, and once he was safely on the ground, the white cat came out to greet him. They were so happy to be reunited, they went inside and began to eat supper. The young prince at dinner told the white cat all about the trials of the old king. The young prince told her of the dog and how the king liked him the best. The young prince told the white cat that his new task was to find a cambric that was so fine it could be passed through the eye of a needle. The white cat told the young prince that he was in luck, that she had some cat servants that were able to produce such a cloth. After they ate, they had a festival celebrating the return of the young prince, and all the cats and the white cat, as well as the young prince, were happy. Time went on until it was the day before the three brothers were to return to the old king. Again, the young prince had forgotten about how much time had passed. Again, the white cat reminded him that it was time to leave. At that time, the cat servants brought a large nut to the white cat, who in turn gave it to the young prince. The white cat told the young prince that he was to open the nut in front of the king, and there he would find the cloth so fine that it would be able to go through the needle. Then the invisible hands took the young prince outside, where there was a pair of white horses and a beautiful carriage made up of jewels, gold, and silver. The young prince hopped inside and said goodbye to the white cat, and with that the horses took off, and the young prince arrived back home. The two other brothers were already there and were waiting for the young prince to present their cambric. The first brother presented his cloth, and it was so fine that everyone thought for sure he would be the one to win the throne from the old king. The old king pulled out his needle and tried to pull the cambric through the eye of the needle, but it could not be done. Then the old king tried the next brother's cambric. It almost went through the eye of the needle, but it still failed. Finally, it was the turn of the young prince. The young prince pulled out the nut. Everyone in the room laughed at the young prince. Then the young prince cracked open the nut, and inside there was another nut, but this time a hazelnut. Then the young prince cracked open the hazelnut, and there was a grain of wheat. Everyone began to laugh at him, including his brothers this time. Even the young prince was getting worried that the white cat had deceived him. But the second he thought this, he could feel the claws of a cat scratch on the back of his leg. The young prince cracked open the grain of wheat, and there at the center was a cambric cloth that was so fine, the young prince presented it to the king, and the king took it and placed it through the eye of the needle. The old king knew that the young prince had to be the one that he must give the throne to. This time the old king told his sons that he would give the kingdom to them, but first they had to find the most beautiful woman, and together the new king and queen would rule together. Whoever brought back the most beautiful wife would be the king. This time the king did not set the challenge because he wanted to be king for another year. He knew that he was getting very old for his responsibilities. This time he gave his challenge so that he would know that the son who would win would have a good life and continue the family into the future. The three sons again left in all different directions. The young prince got back into the carriage and took off to the White Cat's castle. Once there, the young prince told the White Cat what his father asked of his brothers. The White Cat told him that he was free to stay for the year. The young prince and the White Cat enjoyed all the days of the year. Again, it was time to return. This time, the White Cat told the young prince that it was up to him and him alone to find a woman. The young cat told the prince that he must cut off her head and her tail and throw them into the fire. The young prince was horrified and refused to do it. Then the White Cat told him and begged him that he alone must do it. With tears in his eyes, the young prince pulled out his sword and chopped off the head and tail of the cat and threw them into the fire. The second that the head and the tail landed in the fire, out emerged the most beautiful woman. The White Cat had become the princess. The princess, smiling, and to the wonderment and shock of the young prince, told him that he must not think that she had always been the White Cat, and that she was in fact of royal blood. The young prince asked how it was that the princess had become the White Cat, and the princess told him. She told him that her father was in charge of 8 kingdoms, and that he loved her mother very much. He often supported her travels to distant lands to learn of other cultures. While she was studying one culture, she found a rumor of a secret land full of fairies. She found the entrance to this place, but she was not allowed to pass the gate. She was pregnant with the princess at the time, but she still desperately wanted to see the fairies. So the queen stayed at the gate until she grew faint from lack of food and passed out. She woke to find an old woman sitting there looking at her. It turned out that this woman was a fairy, and she asked the queen why she stayed there at the gate until she was ill. The queen told her that she very much wanted to enter the land of the fairies and would do anything to do so. The fairies listened to this and told her that they would let no one into their land, but they would let her in and take as much magical fruit as she could transport on one condition. When the queen was to have the child, she would give her to the fairies. There, the fairies would teach her how to be the smartest princess ever to be. The queen agreed to this. The queen called for as many horses with wagons attached to come take the fruit from the fairyland. Once the king returned home, everyone was happy to see her, including the king. The queen brought so much fruit that it was able to last the entire year. She never told the king the price of the fruit, however. Months passed, and soon it was time for the queen to give birth. This time, the queen grew sad and depressed. The king continued to ask why she felt so sad, until one day the queen told him the price that must be paid. They must give their daughter to the fairies. The king was livid, but did not let the queen know. Instead, the king came up with a plan. They would hide the princess in a tower where the fairies would never find her. Once the princess was born, she was immediately hidden. Then the fairies arrived at the kingdom to take the princess, and the king told them that they could not have her. So the fairies released a dragon into the kingdom, and all the crops were destroyed. Soon everyone began to starve, and still the dragon was destroying buildings and towns. With that, the king decided that he would have to give up his daughter, the princess, in order to save his people from certain death. The princess, the former white cat, told the young prince she grew up only knowing the fairies, and that they taught her a great many things. The fairies, however, kept her from meeting any other human, only letting her through the gardens and into their own tower. The princess grew up, and one day she saw what she thought was a man. She had never seen another person, so she could not be sure, but she knew she liked him. They talked for some time, the princess in the tower and the man at the fairy gate. Then night came, and the man left. The next day they would repeat this, and the next. The princess knew that she wanted to meet this man closer, so she asked the fairies who didn't know of this man for some rope, so that she would be able to catch birds at the side of her window. The fairies gave her the rope, and instead the princess created a ladder for the man to come into her room. But when he climbed up, upon seeing him close, she was afraid. She had never seen anyone else, but he was very kind and handsome, and they sat and talked. They talked until the fairies came in and sounded the alarm. Soon all the fairies came into the room trying to kill this man, and the man trying to protect the princess from the fairies, until one of the fairies entered the room with the dragon, and the dragon ate the man. The princess was so sad that she tried to jump into the dragon's mouth, so that she would be eaten too. The fairies, however, stopped her, because they thought her punishment must be more severe. They told her that she was not born in the fairyland, and that her real parents were now dead. Then they said she would be turned into a white cat, and the only way that she could be able to be turned back into a human princess again was if a man that looked like the one the dragon ate came to her house. They fall in love, and he chop off her head and tail and places it in the fire. Then she would become a human again. The princess told the young prince all this, and then told him that they must hurry to the old king and the young prince's home. All the old king's son returned home, all in the same day. All the couples went to meet with the king. The old king was tired and wasn't sure if he was able to give up his throne, but the princess with the young prince went to speak to the king. She told him that all the sons had found women who would make them happy and should have happy marriages with. She then told the king that she had 8 kingdoms, and she would give one to each of the brothers of the young prince, so that the old king would be able to keep his own. And in addition to that, the young prince and the princess would rule over the remaining 6 kingdoms. The old king was overjoyed with this outcome, and the whole family lived happily to the end of their days.